Hey there. Tonight we're doing something a little different, a little fragrant. We're stepping into the life of a gong farmer in London during Henry VIII's reign. 1509 to 1547, if you're keeping track. Which you probably aren't, because you're trying to fall asleep. This is not a story about nobles or merchants or anyone with the luxury of distance from what's happening. This is about the sound of your shovel scraping stone at midnight. About the weight of baskets that get heavier with each pull. About the smell that becomes part of your skin. And the knowledge that you're doing work the entire city desperately needs, while that same city ensures you'll never be allowed to forget what you are. If you're enjoying these little excursions into historical misery, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more of this particular brand of existential tourism. And if you have thoughts about gong farmers, or Tudor London, or just want to tell me I'm making questionable life choices, drop a comment. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world, all of us united in our appreciation for the finer points of medieval occupational anxiety. Go ahead and dim the lights. Maybe grab a fan if you need the white noise. Let's begin. You didn't choose this work. Let's be clear about that from the start. Nobody wakes up as a child in Tudor England dreaming of the day they'll descend, chest deep into a cesspit filled with years of accumulated human waste. Nobody plans for this. Nobody trains for this. Nobody wants this. But here you are anyway. The path to becoming a gong farmer isn't complicated. It's just brutal. You were poor. You stayed poor. The options narrowed until there was only one option left. And that option was this: starve or shovel shit for the rest of your life. Maybe you were a labourer who got injured. Maybe you were a farmer whose crops failed 3 years running. Maybe you were born in London's poorest quarter and watched your father do this work and knew, with the sick certainty that comes from watching someone's body break down year after year, that you'd end up doing it too. The thing about poverty in Tudor England is that it doesn't give you choices. It gives you the illusion of choices, and then it takes even that away. You could beg, but begging gets you whipped and branded as a vagrant. You could steal, but theft gets you hanged. You could try to find honest work, but honest work requires references, connections, a reputation that isn't already ruined by the neighbourhood you were born in. Or you could become a gong farmer. The pay is good. Remarkably good. 3 times what a common labourer makes. 3 times what most craftsmen earn. You hear that number and you think maybe it won't be so bad. Maybe you can do this for a few years, save up, move on to something better. You're wrong, but you don't know that yet. So you find the gong farmer crew working your neighbourhood. You approach them after dark, because they only work after dark. You'll learn why soon enough. And you tell them you're looking for work. They look at you. They don't ask if you're sure. They don't warn you. They just nod and tell you to show up tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. That's it. No interview. No trial period. No questions about your experience or your character, or whether you're physically capable of doing this. They know you wouldn't be here if you had any other option. And they know that once you start, you'll never have another option again. Let's talk about the work itself, because this is where the reality of what you've agreed to becomes unavoidable. A gong farmer crew consists of 4 people. 4 people to empty a cesspit that's been filling for 2 years, sometimes longer. 4 people to descend into an underground chamber of human waste and manually remove it, bucket by bucket, basket by basket, until the pit is empty enough to be used again. The 4 positions are specific, necessary. Each one has its own particular horror. There's the hole man. That's the person who goes down into the cesspit itself, who stands chest deep, sometimes neck deep, in liquid human waste and fills the baskets that get hauled up. The hole man breathes air that's thick with methane and hydrogen sulfide and ammonia. The hole man's job is the most dangerous, the most disgusting, and absolutely essential. There's the rope man. That's the person who manages the rope tied around the hole man's waist, who keeps tension on the line, who pulls the hole man out if something goes wrong, if the fumes become too much, if the hole man starts to pass out, if the waste level rises too fast. The rope man's job is to keep the hole man alive. Then there are the two tub men. That's you and your partner. You stand at the top of the cesspit and pull up the baskets hand over hand. You empty them into the cart. You lower the baskets back down. You do this hundreds of times per night. Your hands blister. Your back screams. Your arms shake with exhaustion. But you're not the one standing in it. You remind yourself of that constantly. You're not the one standing in it. The hole man is usually the newest member of the crew, the one with the least seniority, the one who hasn't earned the right to stand at the top yet. You were the hole man for your first 6 months. You remember what that was like. You remember descending into the dark. The cesspit is underground, a chamber dug beneath the privy, beneath the house, beneath the street. Some are small, just a few feet across, maybe 6 feet deep. Some are massive, 10 feet wide, 12 feet deep, filled with waste from an entire household or an entire block. You climb down a ladder. The smell hits you before you're halfway down. It's not just unpleasant. It's physical. It coats your throat. It makes your eyes water. It triggers your gag reflex so violently that you vomit the first dozen times, adding your own contribution to the pit you're supposed to be emptying. Eventually, you stop vomiting. Your body adapts. Or maybe it just gives up. The waste itself is liquid, mostly. Years of urine and feces, and whatever else people threw down the privy hole. Dead rats, kitchen scraps, broken pottery. Things you don't want to identify. It's thick, viscous. It moves slowly when you disturb it, like something alive. You stand in it. You feel it pressing against your chest. You try not to think about what's touching your skin. You try not to think about the fact that you're breathing air that's been filtered through human waste. You try not to think about anything except filling the basket. Scoop. Fill. Signal. Wait for the basket to be hauled up. Lower the empty basket. Repeat. The rope around your waist is your lifeline. Literally. If you pass out, the rope man pulls you up. If you slip and go under, the rope man pulls you up. If the methane concentration gets too high and you start to lose consciousness, the rope man pulls you up. Sometimes the rope man doesn't pull fast enough. Sometimes the hole man drowns in human waste. It happens. Not often, but often enough that every crew has a story. Often enough that you know the risk isn't theoretical. The methane is worse than the drowning risk. Human waste produces methane gas as it decomposes. Methane is heavier than air, so it sinks. It accumulates at the bottom of cesspits. It displaces oxygen. You can't see it. You can't smell it. Not distinctly. Not over the overwhelming stench of everything else. But you can feel it. Your head gets light. Your vision blurs. Your thoughts slow down. You feel drunk, disconnected, like you're watching yourself from a distance. That's when you're supposed to signal the rope man to pull you up. If you wait too long, you don't signal at all. You just collapse. And if you collapse face first into liquid waste, you drown before anyone can pull you out. The methane has another property that makes it special. It's flammable, highly flammable, explosive even, in the right concentrations. Which brings us to the most important rule of gong farming. Never, ever bring a flame into a cesspit. No candles, no lanterns, no torches, nothing. You work in complete darkness. You work by feel. You learn to navigate the pit by memory, by the sound of liquid moving, by the texture of the walls under your hands. Because if someone brings a flame into a methane-filled cesspit, the explosion will kill everyone in the immediate area. The hole man, the rope man, the tub men, anyone standing nearby. It's happened. You'll hear about it later, but we'll get to that. For now, you're standing at the top of the cesspit, pulling up baskets, and trying not to think about the fact that you used to be the one standing at the bottom. The work is slow, methodical, repetitive. Pull the basket up, empty it into the cart, lower the basket down, wait. Pull the basket up, empty it, lower it down, wait. Your hands are raw. The rope tears through whatever calluses you've built up. Your shoulders burn. Your back aches. You've been doing this for 3 hours, and the cesspit is maybe a quarter empty. You have 5 more hours before dawn. Because that's the other rule. The rule that governs your entire existence as a gong farmer. You work between 9 o'clock at night and 5 o'clock in the morning. Not a minute earlier, not a minute later. The regulations are specific. A text from 1562, just after Henry's reign. But the rules were the same. States clearly, no Gong farmer shall carry any ordure till after 9 of the clock in the night. 9 at night to 5 in the morning. Those are your hours. Those are the only hours you're allowed to exist in public. The reasoning is simple. The work is considered unclean, repugnant, off-putting to the public. Your presence is contaminating. The sight of you moving through the streets with a cart full of human waste is offensive to decent people, so you're hidden, relegated to the night, made invisible. You're permitted to live only in specified areas. Certain neighborhoods, certain streets. Places where the smell of gong farming is already so pervasive that your presence doesn't make it worse. You're required to dispose of the waste only at approved locations. You can't just dump it anywhere. You can't leave it in alleys or empty lots or anywhere convenient. You take it to Dung Wharf. Dung Wharf sits on the bank of the Thames. The name is not subtle. It's exactly what it sounds like. A wharf dedicated entirely to the disposal of London's human waste. You drive your cart through the dark streets. The wheels creak. The cart is heavy. The smell announces your presence long before anyone sees you. People close their shutters when they hear you coming. They cover their faces. They turn away. You're a mobile contamination zone, and everyone knows it. You reach Dung Wharf sometime around 3 in the morning. Other gong farmer crews are already there. You recognize some of them. You nod. You don't talk much. There's not much to say. You dump your load. Basket by basket, the waste goes into the designated area. From here, it gets loaded onto barges. The barges transport it downriver. The waste ends up in market gardens outside the city, where it's used as fertilizer. Night soil, they call it. A polite term for human shit. The irony is perfect. The waste that makes you untouchable, that marks you as contaminated, that ensures you'll never be allowed into decent society. That same waste feeds the city. It fertilizes the crops. It grows the vegetables that end up on the tables of the nobles who won't let you walk past their houses during daylight. You're essential. You're despised. Both things are true at the same time. The city needs you. The city will never admit it. Let's talk about the money. Because the money is the trap. You make 3 times what a common labourer earns. 3 times what most craftsmen make. For Tudor London, that's significant. That's enough to live on. Enough to eat regularly. Enough to afford a room instead of sleeping in the street. It sounds good. It sounds like you found a way out of poverty. But here's what the money actually means. You're being paid hazard wages. You're being compensated for doing work that will mark you permanently. Work that will ensure you never have another option. Because once you're a gong farmer, you're always a gong farmer. The smell doesn't wash off. You scrub your skin until it's raw. You wash your clothes in the Thames. You try every remedy anyone suggests. Vinegar, lye, herbs, prayers. Nothing works. The smell becomes part of you. It soaks into your skin. It clings to your hair. It permeates your clothes, no matter how many times you wash them. People can smell you coming. They can smell you from across the street. They can smell you even after you've bathed, even after you've changed clothes, even after you've done everything possible to remove the evidence of what you do. The smell is your mark, your brand, your permanent identification as someone who works with human waste. And that mark ensures you'll never work anywhere else. You think maybe you can save up. Do this for a few years. Build up enough money to start over somewhere else. Learn a trade. Open a shop. Do something. Anything other than this. But no one will hire you. No craftsman will take you as an apprentice. No merchant will let you work in their shop. No household will employ you as a servant. No one will let you touch their goods, their tools, their food. You're contaminated. Permanently. The money that seemed like salvation is actually a cage. You earn enough to survive, but you can never earn enough to escape. Because escape isn't about money. It's about the smell that won't wash off, and the social death that comes with it. You're trapped. Economically. Socially. Permanently. The only people who will associate with you are other gong farmers. The only people who don't recoil from your presence are the people who smell exactly the same. Your crew becomes your entire social world. The hole man, the rope man, the other tub man. These are the only people who understand what your life is like. The only people who don't judge you for what you do because they're doing it too. You develop a dark camaraderie, a shared understanding that doesn't need to be spoken. You're all trapped in the same pit, literally and figuratively. And there's a brutal honesty in that. You trust them with your life. Because you have to. Because the rope man is the only thing standing between the hole man and drowning. Because the tubmen are the only ones who can pull you up if something goes wrong. You eat together. You drink together. You live in the same neighborhood. Because you're not allowed to live anywhere else. You become a community of the contaminated. The essential untouchables. Let's walk through a typical night. Because the routine is what defines your existence. 9 o'clock. You meet your crew at the designated location. Tonight, it's a merchant's house near Cheapside. The cesspit hasn't been emptied in 3 years. The household has been complaining. The smell has gotten bad enough that neighbours are threatening to report them to the magistrate. You arrive with your cart, your tools, your rope, your baskets. The household servant meets you at the back entrance. He doesn't look at you. He points to the privy location. He tells you to be finished before dawn. He goes back inside and closes the door. You're alone in the dark. You locate the cesspit access. Usually it's a wooden cover set into the ground near the privy. You pry it open. The smell that emerges is overwhelming even by your standards. 3 years of waste. 3 years of decomposition. 3 years of methane buildup. The whole man. Tonight it's William. He's been with the crew for 8 months. Ties the rope around his waist. He checks the knot. He checks it again. He looks at you and the other tugman. He looks at the rope man. Then he climbs down. You hear him descend. You hear the splash when he reaches the bottom. You hear him gag. You hear him breathe heavily, trying to adjust to the air quality. Then you hear him call up that he's ready. You lower the first basket. The work begins. Pull. Empty. Lower. Wait. Pull. Empty. Lower. Wait. The rhythm is hypnotic. Mindless. Your body moves automatically. Your mind drifts. You think about the merchant who lives here. You think about the fact that he's sleeping in a comfortable bed right now while you're standing in his yard emptying his family's waste. You think about the fact that he'll never acknowledge you, never thank you, never even look at you if he can help it. You think about the irony of being essential and invisible at the same time. Pull. Empty. Lower. Wait. An hour passes. 2 hours. The cart is half full. The cesspit is maybe a third empty. William calls up that he needs a break. The fumes are getting to him. The rope man pulls him up. William sits on the edge of the pit, breathing hard, his clothes soaked with waste. You take your turn as hole man. You climb down. The ladder is slippery. You descend into the dark. Your feet touch liquid. You keep descending. The liquid rises to your knees. Your waist. Your chest. You stop. You're standing in 3 years of accumulated human waste. You can feel it moving against your skin. You can feel solid objects bumping against your legs. Things you don't want to identify. The smell is beyond description. It's not just unpleasant. It's suffocating. It fills your lungs. It coats your throat. It makes breathing feel like drowning. But you breathe anyway. Because you have to. Because this is your job. You reach down. You scoop waste into the basket. You signal. You wait for the basket to be pulled up. You do this for an hour. Maybe longer. Time becomes strange down here. Your head feels light. Your thoughts slow down. You recognize the signs. Methane buildup, oxygen displacement. You signal to be pulled up. The rope man pulls. You climb. You emerge into the night air, and it feels like resurrection. You sit. You breathe. You let someone else take a turn. The work continues until 4 in the morning. The cesspit is empty enough. Not completely empty. You never get them completely empty, but empty enough that the household can use it for another 2 or 3 years. You replace the cover. You load your cart. You drive to Dung Wharf. You dump your load. You watch it slide into the designated area. You watch other crews doing the same. You drive back through the dark streets. You reach your neighborhood just as the sky starts to lighten. 5 o'clock. Your shift is over. You go home. You try to wash. You try to sleep. Tomorrow night you'll do it again. The city you're working in is ruled by Henry VIII. Henry VIII. The king who's famous for his wives, his break with Rome, his increasingly paranoid and violent reign. Henry is also obsessed with cleanliness. The irony is exquisite. Henry's court is famous for its attention to hygiene. The king bathes regularly, unusual for the time. He changes his clothes frequently. He's particular about the cleanliness of his surroundings. He employs a groom of the stool, a servant whose job is to attend to the king's toilet needs and ensure everything is properly cleaned. Henry's privy is cleaned by someone like you. Maybe not you specifically, but someone doing the same work. Someone descending into the royal cesspit and manually removing the king's waste. The king who obsesses over cleanliness and perfume and proper etiquette produces the same waste as everyone else. And that waste has to go somewhere, and someone has to remove it. That someone is you. You're part of the infrastructure that allows Henry's court to function. You're part of the system that keeps London from drowning in its own filth. You're essential to the operation of the city, and you're treated like contamination. The disconnect is perfect. The city needs you. The king needs you. The entire social structure depends on people like you doing this work. But acknowledging that would mean acknowledging that the king's waste is the same as everyone else's, that nobles and merchants and craftsmen all produce the same disgusting byproduct, that the carefully maintained social hierarchy is built on a foundation of human waste that someone has to deal with. So you're hidden, made invisible, relegated to the night. You exist in the gaps of the city's schedule. You work while everyone else sleeps. You're essential infrastructure that no one wants to see. The diseases kill you slowly. Nobody knows what they are. Nobody's identified cholera yet. Nobody understands how disease spreads through contaminated water. Nobody's made the connection between human waste and the illnesses that kill Gong farmers at rates far higher than the general population. They just know that Gong farmers die young, that they get sick more often, that they develop strange symptoms, chronic diarrhea, fever, weakness, wasting. You know Gong farmers who've died from infections that started with a small cut. The cut got exposed to waste. The infection spread. They died within a week. You know Gong farmers who've developed chronic respiratory problems, who cough constantly, who can't breathe properly, who die gasping for air that their lungs can't process anymore. You know Gong farmers who've simply collapsed one day and never woken up. Heart failure maybe. Organ failure from years of toxic exposure. Nobody knows. Nobody investigates. You're just another dead Gong farmer. The life expectancy for your profession is significantly lower than the general population. You know this. Everyone knows this. But what choice do you have? You can die slowly from disease while earning enough to eat. Or you can die quickly from starvation. Those are your options. You choose the slow death. Everyone does. The explosion happened 3 years ago. You weren't there, but everyone in the Gong farming community knows the story. A crew was working a cesspit in Southwark, large pit, deep, hadn't been emptied in 4 years. The methane buildup was significant. The whole man was new, very new. First week on the job. He brought a candle. Nobody knows why. Maybe he was scared of the dark. Maybe he didn't understand the danger. Maybe someone forgot to tell him the most important rule. He climbed down into the cesspit with a lit candle. The methane ignited instantly. The explosion killed the whole man immediately. It killed the rope man. It severely injured both tub men. It damaged the house above the cesspit. It was heard 3 streets away. The bodies, what was left of them, were pulled from the wreckage. The whole man was identified by his clothes. Barely. The crew's families got nothing. No compensation. No support. Just the knowledge that their husbands and fathers had died doing the city's necessary work. The story spread through the Gong farming community like a warning, like a reminder, like a prayer. Never bring a flame into a cesspit. Never. You think about that story every time you descend. Every time you stand in the dark, breathing methane-laced air, feeling the waste press against your chest. You think about how quickly it could end. How one mistake, yours or someone else's, could kill you instantly. You think about the fact that your death wouldn't matter, wouldn't be investigated, wouldn't be commemorated. You'd just be another dead gong farmer. Another casualty of essential work that nobody wants to acknowledge. You can't stop working. That's the reality you come back to every time you think about escape. Every time you imagine a different life. Every time you dream about doing something. Anything else. You can't stop because you need the money. You've become dependent on wages that are 3 times what anyone else makes. You've adjusted your life to that income level. You can't go back to earning a labourer's wage. You can't survive on that anymore. You can't stop because no one else will hire you. The smell has marked you permanently. You're contaminated. Untouchable. No other profession will take you. You can't stop because you have no other skills. You've been doing this for years. This is what you know. This is what you're trained for. This is your expertise. You can't stop because your family depends on you. Your wife, your children. They need the money you bring home. They need the food you can afford to buy. They need the room you can afford to rent. You're trapped by economics, by social stigma, by necessity. The work that was supposed to be temporary has become permanent. The job that was supposed to be a stepping stone has become your entire life. You're a gong farmer now. That's what you are. That's all you'll ever be. And your children are watching. Your son is 12. He's old enough to understand what you do. Old enough to see how people react to you. Old enough to smell the stench that never washes off. He's also old enough to understand that he's facing the same choice you faced. He's poor. He's the son of a gong farmer, which means he's already marked. Already contaminated by association, already excluded from most opportunities. He can try to find other work. He can try to apprentice with a craftsman. He can try to build a different life. But the odds are against him. The social stigma is against him. The smell that clings to your household is against him. Or he can join your crew. He can learn the work. He can start as a whole man. He can earn 3 times what a labourer makes. He can support himself. He can survive. He can become exactly what you are. You see him watching you. You see him thinking. You see the resignation starting to settle into his face. You want to tell him to run, to get out, to do anything except this. But you know he won't. Because he can't. Because the same forces that trapped you are already closing around him. The cycle continues. Generation after generation. Poverty breeding poverty. Desperation breeding desperation. Gong farmers raising children who become gong farmers, who raise children who become gong farmers. The trap is generational. Inescapable. You're standing at Dung Wharf at 4 in the morning. You've just dumped your 3rd load of the night. Your hands are raw. Your back aches. You smell like human waste because you are human waste, at least in the eyes of everyone who matters. You look at the Thames. You watch the water move. You think about where your cargo is going. Downriver. to market gardens, to fields outside the city. The waste becomes fertilizer. The fertilizer grows crops. The crops feed London. The vegetables that end up on the tables of nobles. The grain that becomes bread for merchants. The food that sustains the city. All of it fertilized by the waste you remove. All of it made possible by the work you do. You're essential. You're the foundation of the city's sanitation system. You're the reason London doesn't drown in its own filth, and you're treated like contamination. The city needs you. The city despises you. Both things are true at the same time. You're necessary infrastructure that no one wants to acknowledge. You're essential labor that everyone wants to pretend doesn't exist. You work in the dark. You live in designated areas. You're paid well enough to survive, but never enough to escape. You're trapped in a profession that marks you permanently. That ensures you'll never be anything else. That guarantees your children will face the same choice you faced. You're a gong farmer in Tudor London. You remove human waste from cesspits. You transport it to Dung Wharf. You dump it into the Thames. You do this night after night after night. You make the city possible. The city will never thank you. You're essential. You're invisible. You're contaminated. You're necessary. You're all of these things at once. And you can never stop being any of them. The sky is starting to lighten. 5 o'clock approaches. Your shift is almost over. You drive your cart back through the empty streets. You pass houses where people are starting to wake. You hear shutters opening. You hear the sounds of the city beginning its day. You'll be home before anyone sees you. You'll wash. You'll try to sleep. You'll wake up in the afternoon and try not to think about the fact that you have to do this again tonight, and tomorrow night, and the night after that, and every night for the rest of your life, because you're a gong farmer. That's what you are. That's what you'll always be. The city needs you. The city will never admit it. You're essential. You're despised. You're trapped. You're necessary. You're all of these things. You're none of these things. You're just trying to survive in a world that needs your labor but refuses to acknowledge your humanity. Welcome to Tudor London. Welcome to the life of a gong farmer. Welcome to the most essential, most despised, most inescapable profession in the city. This is your life now. This is what you do. This is what you'll always do. The smell never washes off. The work never ends. The trap never opens. You're a gong farmer. That's your reality. That's your fate. That's your permanent, inescapable truth. And now you know what that means. But let's talk about what that truth actually looks like when you're living it. Because the abstract horror of being a gong farmer is one thing, the specific, daily, grinding reality is something else entirely. The diseases start small. A cut on your hand. Nothing serious. You got it pulling up a basket. The rope slipped, tore through the callus, opened the skin. It happens. You wash it in the Thames. You wrap it in cloth. You keep working. 3 days later, the cut is red. Swollen. Hot to the touch. You've seen this before. You know what it means. The infection spreads fast when it starts in a wound exposed to waste. The redness travels up your arm like a vine growing under your skin. Your hand swells until you can't make a fist. The pain becomes constant, a throbbing, burning ache that doesn't stop. You develop a fever. Your body tries to fight the infection. It fails. Within a week, you're weak, shaking, unable to work. Your crew finds someone to replace you temporarily. You lie in your room and sweat through your blankets and wonder if this is how it ends. Some Gong farmers recover from infections like this. Their bodies fight it off. The swelling goes down. The fever breaks. They return to work with a scar and a reminder of how close they came. Others don't recover. The infection reaches the blood, spreads through the body, shuts down organs one by one. They die in their rooms, alone, because no one wants to be near them, even in death. You recover. This time. But the respiratory problems don't go away. You've been breathing cesspit air for years now. Methane, hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, particulate matter from decomposing waste. Your lungs weren't designed for this. You develop a cough. Everyone develops a cough eventually. At first it's just occasional. A tickle in your throat. A need to clear your airways after climbing out of a pit. Then it becomes constant. You cough throughout the day. You cough at night. You cough until your ribs ache and your throat is raw. You start coughing up things. Phlegm. Dark, thick mucus. Sometimes blood. Your breathing becomes labored. You can't take deep breaths anymore. Your chest feels tight, constricted, like there's a weight sitting on your lungs. You watch other Gong farmers go through the same progression. You watch them get weaker. You watch them struggle to climb down into cesspits because they can't breathe well enough to handle the exertion. You watch them collapse. Some die quickly, sudden heart failure, their bodies just giving up. Others die slowly, wasting away over months. Their lungs gradually losing the ability to process oxygen, drowning in air. Nobody knows what causes it. Nobody's studying Gong farmer mortality rates. Nobody's investigating the connection between breathing toxic fumes and respiratory failure. They just know that Gong farmers die young. That's accepted. Expected. Part of the job. You're 32 years old. You feel 50. Your back is permanently damaged from years of pulling baskets. Your hands are scarred and calloused and arthritic. Your lungs don't work properly. Your skin has a greyish tint from constant exposure to waste. You look at yourself in a piece of polished metal, the closest thing you have to a mirror, and you don't recognize what you see. This is what the work does. This is what it costs. And you can't stop. Let's talk about the cesspits themselves. Because they're not all the same. Each one presents its own particular challenges, its own specific horrors. The small household cesspits are almost manageable. Almost. These are the pits beneath single-family homes, maybe 6 feet deep, 4 feet across. They fill slowly, just one family's waste over 2 or 3 years. You can empty these in a single night. 4 hours of work, maybe 5. The whole man doesn't have to stay down long. The methane buildup is usually minimal. The risk of drowning is low. These are the jobs you hope for, the ones that don't break you. Then there are the communal cesspits. These serve entire blocks, multiple households dumping into the same underground chamber, 10 feet deep, 12 feet across, filled with waste from dozens of people over years. These take multiple nights to empty. The whole man has to descend repeatedly, working in shifts because the fumes are too dangerous for extended exposure. The methane concentration is high enough that you can feel it. That dizzy, disconnected sensation that means you're breathing poison. The waste in communal pits is different, more varied. You find things that shouldn't be there. Dead animals, broken furniture, chamber pots that someone just threw in whole. You find evidence of crimes. Bodies, sometimes. Infants who didn't survive birth, disposed of in the only place that asks no questions. You don't report what you find. You just remove it. Add it to the cart. Take it to Dung Wharf with everything else. The worst are the castle and manor cesspits. These are massive, 15 feet deep, 20 feet across. Designed to handle the waste of entire estates, nobles, servants, guards, visitors. They're architectural achievements in their own way. Carefully constructed chambers with stone walls and drainage systems that don't actually drain. They fill for years, sometimes a decade. By the time you're called to empty them, they're archaeological sites of human waste. Layers upon layers of decomposed matter, each layer representing a different era of the household's history. The methane in these pits is explosive, literally. The concentration is so high that a single spark would turn the entire chamber into a bomb. You work in absolute darkness. You work slowly. You work with the constant awareness that one mistake, one moment of carelessness could kill everyone. The waste composition varies too. Fresh waste is liquid, flows easily, fills baskets quickly. It's disgusting, but it's manageable. Old waste is different. It's thick, viscous, sometimes solid. It clings to everything. It doesn't want to move. You have to break it up, dig into it, physically separate the layers that have compacted over years. Sometimes you find pockets of liquid trapped beneath solid layers. You break through the crust, and suddenly you're standing in waste that's flowing, rising, threatening to go over your chest. Sometimes you find pockets of gas. You disturb a sealed section, and methane rushes out, displacing the air, making you dizzy before you can signal to be pulled up. Every cesspit is a gamble. Every descent is a risk. And you do this night after night after night. London during Henry VIII's reign is a city eating itself. The population is exploding. 50,000 people. 60,000. More arriving every year from the countryside, looking for work, looking for opportunity, looking for anything better than rural poverty. They find urban poverty instead, and urban filth. The city wasn't designed for this many people. The infrastructure can't handle it. The sanitation system, such as it is overwhelmed. Cesspits that were supposed to serve one household now serve 3. Cesspits that were supposed to be emptied every 2 years go 5 years, 10 years. Some are never emptied at all. They just overflow, leaking waste into the streets, into the Thames, into the groundwater that people drink. The smell is everywhere, inescapable. London reeks of human waste. The wealthy burn incense and perfume to mask it. The poor just live with it. You're part of the solution. Barely. You and the other Gong farmer crews work every night, emptying as many cesspits as you can. It's not enough. It's never enough. For every pit you empty, 3 more are overflowing. The neighbourhoods you work vary wildly. In the wealthy areas, near the Tower, near Westminster, the houses are large, the cesspits are well maintained, the households pay well. You're still treated like contamination, but at least the work is relatively straightforward. In Southwark, across the river, everything is worse. Southwark is where the poor live, where the criminals live, where the rules are suggestions and the cesspits are nightmares. The pits in Southwark haven't been emptied in years. Decades, some of them. They're overflowing into the streets. Children play in alleys where waste runs in open channels. Disease spreads like fire. You work Southwark when you have to, when the money is good enough to justify the risk, when the alternative is not working at all. The cesspits there are dangerous in ways that go beyond methane and drowning. They're structurally unsound, dug hastily, maintained poorly, collapsing without warning. You've heard stories of whole men descending into pits that caved in, burying them alive in waste and rubble. You've heard stories of Gong farmer crews being attacked by desperate people who can't pay for the service but need their cesspits emptied anyway. Robbed. Beaten. Left in the street. Southwark is where you go when you're desperate. When you need money badly enough to accept the additional risk. You try to avoid it. You don't always succeed. The legal restrictions that govern your life are specific, detailed, designed to keep you invisible. You're permitted to live only in certain areas. The regulations don't list specific streets, but everyone knows which neighbourhoods are acceptable for Gong farmers. The poorest quarters. The areas where the smell is already so bad that your presence doesn't make it worse. You're not allowed in wealthy neighbourhoods except to work. You can't walk through them during the day. You can't shop in their markets. You can't enter their churches. If you're found in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're arrested, fined, sometimes whipped. The magistrates enforce these rules strictly, not because they care about you, but because wealthy residents complain. Your presence is offensive. Contaminating. A violation of the social order. You learn to navigate the city carefully. You learn which streets you can use, which alleys provide shortcuts that avoid areas where you're not allowed, which times of day are safest for moving through transitional neighbourhoods. You learn to make yourself small, invisible, to avoid eye contact, to move quickly and quietly and hope nobody notices you. Sometimes they notice anyway. You're walking home one morning later than you should be, the sun already rising, and you cut through a street near Cheapside. A merchant sees you, recognizes what you are by the smell, by the stains on your clothes. He calls the watch. 2 guards appear. They don't ask questions. They grab you. They drag you to the magistrate. The magistrate doesn't care that you were just trying to get home, doesn't care that you were working all night, doesn't care about anything except the fact that you violated the regulations. You're fined 2 shillings, a day's wages. You're whipped, 10 lashes, not enough to permanently damage you. They need you working, but enough to remind you of your place. You pay the fine. You take the lashes. You go home. You don't cut through Cheapside again. The restrictions extend beyond geography. You're not allowed in taverns unless they specifically cater to Gong farmers. You're not allowed in bathhouses. Not that you could afford them anyway, but the prohibition is explicit. You're not allowed to touch food in markets. Vendors will refuse to sell to you if they recognize what you are. You're not allowed to marry outside your profession. Technically, there's no law against it. Practically, it's impossible. No one will marry someone who smells like human waste. No family will accept a Gong farmer as a son-in-law or daughter-in-law. You marry within the community, if you marry at all. Your wife is the daughter of a Gong farmer. She grew up with the smell. She understands what the work means. She doesn't recoil from you. She also doesn't have any other options. Just like you. Your children are born into this. They grow up in the Gong farmer quarter. They grow up with the smell. They grow up knowing what their father does, what they'll probably do. The cycle perpetuates itself. Let's talk about Henry VIII's court, because the irony is too perfect to ignore. Henry is obsessed with cleanliness, genuinely obsessed. He bathes regularly, multiple times a week, which is extraordinary for the time. He changes his clothes constantly. He employs servants whose entire job is to ensure his surroundings are spotless. He has a groom of the stool, a high-ranking position, a trusted servant who attends to the king's toilet needs, who ensures the royal privy is cleaned immediately, who monitors the king's health through his waste. The groom of the stool is a position of privilege, of access, of trust. But someone still has to empty the king's cesspit. That someone is you, or someone exactly like you. The royal cesspits are cleaned by Gong farmers, the same people who are banned from walking through wealthy neighborhoods during the day, the same people who are whipped for being in the wrong place, the same people who are treated as contamination. You descend into the royal cesspit and you remove the king's waste. You fill baskets with it. You haul it up. You load it into your cart. You take it to Dung Wharf. The king's shit smells the same as everyone else's, looks the same, feels the same when you're standing in it. But you can't say that. You can't even think it too loudly. The disconnect is staggering. The king who obsesses over cleanliness and perfume and proper etiquette produces waste that has to be manually removed by people he would never acknowledge as human. The court discusses philosophy and art and theology while you're standing chest deep in their collective waste. The nobles who wear silk and velvet and jewels produce the same disgusting byproduct as the poorest beggar in Southwark, and you're the one who has to deal with it. You're the infrastructure that makes their cleanliness possible. You're the invisible labor that allows them to pretend waste doesn't exist. You're essential. You're despised. Both things are true simultaneously. The money is supposed to make it worth it. 3 times what a laborer earns. 3 times what most craftsmen make. Enough to live on. Enough to eat regularly. Enough to afford a room instead of sleeping in the street. It sounds good. It sounds like you've escaped poverty. But here's what the money actually means. You can afford food. Basic food. Bread. Cheese. Occasionally meat. You're not starving. That's an improvement over where you started. You can afford a room. A small room in the Gong farmer quarter, shared with your family. The walls are thin. The roof leaks. But it's shelter. You can afford clothes. Rough clothes. Clothes that will be permanently stained with waste no matter how many times you wash them. But they're clothes. That's it. That's what 3 times a labourer's wage buys you. You can't afford to move to a better neighbourhood. You're not allowed to live anywhere else. You can't afford luxuries. Can't afford entertainment. Can't afford anything beyond basic survival. You can't save enough to escape. Because escape isn't about money. It's about the smell that won't wash off, and the social death that comes with it. The money is a trap disguised as opportunity. You earn enough to survive. You never earn enough to leave. The wages that seem generous are actually just compensation for accepting permanent social death. You're paid well because no one else will do this work. You're paid well because the work destroys you. You're paid well because the money is the only thing keeping you from walking away. And you can't walk away. Because you need the money. Because you've become dependent on it. Because you've adjusted your life to that income level, and you can't go back. The despair is quiet. Gradual. Insidious. You don't wake up one day and realize you've given up. It happens slowly. Over months. Over years. You stop imagining a different life. You stop thinking about escape. You stop hoping for anything better. You accept that this is what you are. This is what you'll always be. The acceptance feels like relief at first, like putting down a heavy weight. like stopping a fight you were always going to lose. Then it feels like death, like watching yourself disappear, like becoming a function instead of a person. You go through the motions. You work. You eat. You sleep. You work again. You stop talking to your wife about anything meaningful. What's the point? Nothing changes. Nothing will ever change. You stop playing with your children. You're too tired, too broken, too aware that you're watching them slide into the same trap. You stop feeling much of anything. The work numbs you. The isolation numbs you. The constant exposure to filth and disease and death numbs you. You become what the city thinks you are. Contamination. Infrastructure. A necessary function that nobody wants to acknowledge. You watch yourself give up. You can't stop it. You don't even try. Some Gong farmers try to escape anyway. They save money. They plan. They think maybe they can move to a different city. Start over. Pretend they were never Gong farmers. It never works. The smell follows them. No matter how far they travel. No matter how many times they wash. People can smell it. People know. And even if they could hide the smell, they can't hide the gaps in their history. They can't explain where they've been, what they've been doing, why they have money but no references, no connections, no reputation. They end up back in the same work. Different city, same cesspit. Or they end up worse. Begging, stealing, starving. The ones who try to transition to other work fail immediately. No craftsman will take them as apprentices. No merchant will hire them. No household will employ them. The contamination is permanent. The social death is irreversible. You know a Gong farmer who tried to become a labourer. Thought maybe he could do construction work. Manual labour. Something that didn't require references or reputation. He showed up at a building site, offered to work. The foreman took one look at him, one smell of him, and told him to leave. He tried 3 more sites. Same result. He came back to Gong farming. What else could he do? You know another who tried to leave London entirely. Moved to a village outside the city. Thought maybe rural life would be different. Thought maybe people wouldn't care about his past. They cared. They smelled him. They drove him out. He came back, returned to his crew, returned to the cesspits. There is no escape. The trap is absolute. You're standing at Dung Wharf at 4 a.m. You've just dumped your 4th load of the night. Your hands are bleeding. Your back is screaming. You can barely breathe. You look at the Thames. You watch the waste slide into the water. You watch it float downstream. You think about where it goes. To market gardens. To fields. Turned into fertilizer. Used to grow food. The vegetables that end up on nobles' tables. The grain that becomes bread for merchants. The food that sustains the city. All of it fertilized by the waste you remove. All of it made possible by the work you do. You're the foundation of London's food supply. You're the reason the city doesn't starve. And you're treated like you're less than human. The city needs you. Desperately. Urgently. Constantly. The city hates you. Fears you. Fears you. Wants you invisible. Both things are true. Both things will always be true. Your essential infrastructure that everyone wants to pretend doesn't exist. Your necessary labour that nobody wants to acknowledge. You work in the dark. You live in the margins. You exist in the gaps of the city's schedule. You're paid well enough to survive, but never enough to escape. You're marked permanently by work that destroys you slowly. You're watching your children slide into the same trap. You can't stop it. You can't save them. You're a gong farmer in Tudor London. You remove human waste from cesspits. You transport it to Dung Wharf. You dump it into the Thames. You do this night after night after night. You make the city possible. The city will never thank you. You're essential. You're invisible. You're contaminated. You're necessary. You're trapped in a profession that marks you permanently. That ensures you'll never be anything else. That guarantees your children will face the same choice you faced. The smell never washes off. The work never ends. The trap never opens. You're 32 years old. You feel 50. You'll probably be dead by 40. Your lungs are failing. Your body is breaking down. Your spirit gave up years ago. But you keep working. Because what else can you do? The city needs its cesspits emptied. The city needs its waste removed. The city needs you. And you need the money. You need to eat. You need shelter. You need to survive. So you descend into the dark. You stand in human waste. You fill baskets. You haul them up. You do this until your body fails completely. Until the diseases kill you. Until you collapse in a cesspit and drown in what you were trying to remove. That's your future. That's every gong farmer's future. You know it. You've always known it. You just stopped fighting it. Welcome to Tudor London. Welcome to the life of a gong farmer. Welcome to essential work that destroys you while the city pretends you don't exist. This is your reality. This is your fate. This is your permanent, inescapable truth. The smell never washes off. The work never ends. The trap never opens. You're a gong farmer. That's what you are. That's what you'll always be. That's what will kill you. And now you know exactly what that means. Let's walk through tonight. One complete shift. Because the abstract horror is one thing. The specific, grinding reality of 8 hours is something else entirely. 9 o'clock. You meet your crew at the corner of Bread Street and Cheapside. William is already there, coiling rope. Thomas arrives a minute later with the cart. And then there's the new one. His name is John. He's maybe 20. Maybe younger. Hard to tell. Poverty ages people in ways that have nothing to do with years. You see it in his eyes immediately. That mixture of desperation and dawning horror. He knows what he signed up for in theory. He's about to learn what it means in practice. He doesn't ask questions. Smart. There's nothing to ask that will make this better. Thomas hands him a basket, shows him how to grip the rope, explains the signals. 1 tug means pull, 2 tugs means stop, 3 tugs means pull the whole man up immediately. John nods. He's trying to look capable, trying to look like he can handle this. He can't. Nobody can. You just learn to keep moving anyway. The first job is a merchant's house near St. Paul's. 3-story building. Expensive. The cesspit hasn't been emptied in 4 years. You arrive through the back alley. The household servant is waiting. A thin man with a pinched face who won't look at any of you directly. He points to the cesspit access, tells you to be finished by dawn, and disappears back inside. You're alone with the work. The cesspit cover is heavy oak, reinforced with iron bands. It takes all 4 of you to pry it open. The smell that emerges makes John gag immediately. He turns away, retches, spits. You don't say anything. Everyone does that the first time, the 10th time, the 100th time. William ties the rope around his waist, checks the knot twice. He's been the hall man for 6 months now, long enough to know the dangers, not long enough to have earned his way out of the position. He descends. You hear the ladder creak. You hear the splash when he reaches the bottom. You hear him breathing hard, adjusting to air that's more methane than oxygen. Then his voice comes up from the dark. Ready. You and Thomas take position as tubmen. John stands beside you, gripping his basket like it might save him. The first basket comes up. The weight is immediate, substantial. You pull hand over hand, the rope tearing through your calluses. The basket emerges from the darkness, filled with liquid waste that sloshes against the sides. The smell is overwhelming, even by your standards. 4 years of decomposition. 4 years of a wealthy household's collective output. You empty the basket into the cart. The waste slides out in a thick, viscous stream. Some of it splashes. You feel it hit your leg. You keep working. John empties his basket. He's trying not to breathe. Trying not to look at what he's handling. Trying not to think about what this means for the rest of his life. Lower the baskets. Wait. Pull them up. Empty. Repeat. The rhythm establishes itself. Mechanical. Mindless. Your body moves automatically while your mind drifts into the particular emptiness that comes from doing work that destroys you. 10 o'clock. You've been working for an hour. The cart is a quarter full. The cesspit is maybe an eighth empty. William calls up that he needs a break. The fumes are getting to him. Thomas pulls him up. William sits on the edge of the pit, soaked from chest to boots in waste, breathing hard. John stares at him. You can see the realization settling in. This is what he'll be doing. This is what he'll become. You take your turn as hall man. The descent is always the worst part. The ladder is slippery. The darkness is absolute. You lower yourself into an underground chamber of human waste, and you feel the liquid rise against your body. Knees, waist, chest. You stop descending. You're standing in 4 years of accumulated filth. You can feel solid objects bumping against your legs. Things you've learned not to identify. The air is thick, suffocating. Each breath feels like drowning. You reach down. Scoop waste into the basket. Signal. Wait for it to be pulled up. Time becomes strange down here. Minutes stretch. Your thoughts slow. The methane is displacing oxygen, and your brain is starting to notice. You fill 6 baskets. Maybe 7. Then you feel it. That lightness in your head. That disconnection from your body. That means you need to get out now. 3 tugs on the rope. Thomas pulls. You climb. You emerge into the night air. And it feels like resurrection, even though the air above ground still reeks. 11 o'clock. John takes his turn as hall man. You watch him descend. You watch him reach the waist level and freeze. You watch him stand there, chest deep in filth, trying to process what's happening to him. Then he starts working. Because what else can he do? He fills baskets slower than William, slower than you. He's still learning the rhythm, still learning how to move in liquid waste, still learning how to breathe air that wants to kill you. He lasts 20 minutes before he signals to come up. When he emerges, his face is grey. His hands are shaking. He sits on the ground and stares at nothing. You remember that feeling. That moment when the abstract horror becomes concrete. When you realize this isn't temporary. This isn't something you'll do for a few months and move on from. This is your life now. Midnight. The cesspit is half empty. Your hands are bleeding. Your back is screaming. You've been doing this for 3 hours, and you have 5 more to go. The city around you is sleeping. You can hear it. The absence of sound that comes when most of London is unconscious. Occasionally, a dog barks. Occasionally, you hear footsteps on a distant street. But mostly, it's just the sound of your work. Rope sliding through hands. Baskets scraping against stone. Waste sloshing into the cart. You're invisible. Essential and invisible. 1 o'clock. The cart is full. You need to make a run to Dung Wharf. Thomas drives. You and William and John stay behind to keep working. There's another cart, smaller, that you'll fill while he's gone. You watch Thomas disappear into the dark streets. You listen to the cartwheels fade. Then you lower yourself back into the cesspit. The waste level has dropped significantly. You're only waist deep now. But the concentration of methane has increased. Less liquid means more gas accumulating in the space above it. You work faster. Fill baskets. Signal. Climb out before the fumes get too bad. John is learning. He's still slow, still awkward, but he's learning the rhythm. Learning how to move. Learning how to survive this. 2 o'clock. Thomas returns with the empty cart. You've filled the smaller cart completely. You're making progress. The cesspit is 3/4 empty now. You can see the bottom stone, slick with residue, covered in things you don't examine too closely. William descends one more time. He's exhausted. You're all exhausted. But the job isn't finished. 3 o'clock. You're scraping the bottom of the cesspit, getting the last of the waste. It's thick here. Compacted layers that have solidified over years. You have to break it up manually. Dig into it. Physically separate matter that doesn't want to move. Your hands are raw. Your shoulders are burning. You can barely grip the rope anymore. But you keep working. Because the household is paying for a complete cleaning. Because if you don't finish, you don't get paid. Because this is what you do. 4 o'clock. The cesspit is as empty as it's going to get. You'll never get it completely clean. There's always residue, always a layer of waste that's too compacted to remove. But it's empty enough. Empty enough that the household can use it for another 3 or 4 years before calling you back. You replace the wooden cover. You load the final cart. You prepare for the last run to Dung Wharf. The sky is still dark, but there's a quality to the darkness that's different. A subtle lightening at the edges. Dawn is coming. You have an hour, maybe less. The drive to Dung Wharf is quiet. John sits in the back of the cart, staring at his hands. They're covered in waste. Stained. He's scrubbed them twice already, and the stains haven't budged. They won't. He's learning that too. You reach Dung Wharf at 4:30. Other crews are already there. You recognize some faces. You nod. They nod back. Nobody talks. There's nothing to say. You dump your load. Basket by basket, the waste slides into the designated area. You watch it join the massive accumulation of London's collective filth. From here, it goes onto barges, down the Thames, to market gardens outside the city. The waste that marks you as untouchable will fertilise the crops that feed the nobles who won't let you walk past their houses. The system is perfect in its perversity. The city produces waste. The city needs that waste removed. The city needs people willing to remove it. The city ensures those people can never be anything else. You're the solution to a problem the city created. You're punished for solving it. You're trapped. by being essential. It's a closed loop, self-sustaining, generational. Your son will do this work. His son will do this work. The cycle continues because the city needs it to continue. 5 o'clock approaches. The sky is definitely lighter now. You can see the horizon, a thin line of grey separating the Thames from the sky. You need to leave. You need to get back to your neighbourhood before the city wakes up. Before decent people emerge and see you. The drive back is a race against dawn. You push the cart faster. Your exhausted body finds energy it doesn't have because the alternative is being seen. Being seen means being reported. Being reported means fines, whipping, punishment for existing in the wrong place at the wrong time. You reach your neighbourhood just as the first light touches the rooftops. You're safe, invisible again. John is still sitting in the cart. He hasn't moved. He's staring at nothing. You recognize that look. That's the look of someone realizing what they've become, what they'll always be. You want to tell him it gets easier. You want to tell him the horror fades. You want to tell him something comforting. But you don't lie to him, because it doesn't get easier. The horror doesn't fade. You just stop fighting it. He'll learn that. Everyone learns that. You go home. You try to wash. The water in the basin turns brown immediately. You scrub your skin until it's raw. You wash your clothes in the Thames. The smell doesn't leave. It never leaves. You lie down. You try to sleep. Your body aches in ways that have become familiar. Your lungs rattle. Your hands throb. You close your eyes and you think about tonight. About the merchant's cesspit. About John's face when he realized what his life had become. About the waste sliding into the Thames. About the cycle that never ends. You think about your son, 12 years old, watching you, learning what his future looks like. You think about the city, sleeping peacefully, producing waste, needing you, hating you. You think about Henry VIII in his palace, obsessing over cleanliness, employing a groom of the stool, never acknowledging that someone like you cleans his privy. You think about the nobles eating vegetables fertilized by the waste you removed, never making the connection, never admitting the dependency. The system works because nobody acknowledges how it works. Your essential infrastructure that everyone pretends doesn't exist. Your necessary labor that nobody wants to see. You're the foundation of the city's sanitation, and you're treated like contamination. Both things are true. Both things will always be true. You fall asleep thinking about tomorrow night, about the next cesspit, about the next descent into darkness, about the next 8 hours of work that destroys you while keeping the city functional. This is your life. This is what you do. This is what you'll always do. The smell never washes off. The work never ends. The trap never opens. You're a gong farmer in Tudor London. You make the city possible. The city will never thank you. You're essential. You're invisible. You're contaminated. You're necessary. You're trapped. You're dying slowly. You're all of these things at once. And when you die, when the diseases finally kill you, when your lungs finally give out, when you finally collapse in a cesspit and drown in what you were trying to remove, someone will take your place. Maybe your son, maybe someone else's son, maybe another desperate person who ran out of options. The city will keep producing waste. The city will keep needing it removed. The city will keep finding people desperate enough to do it. The cycle continues. generation after generation. Poverty breeding. Poverty. Desperation. Breeding. Desperation. Gong farmers raising children who become gong farmers, who raise children who become gong farmers. You're not the first. You won't be the last. You're just another link in a chain that stretches back centuries and will stretch forward centuries more. Essential. Despised. Trapped. Necessary. Invisible. Dying. Welcome to Tudor London. Welcome to the life of a gong farmer. Welcome to work that keeps the city alive while killing you slowly. This is what it means. This is what it costs. This is what you are. The smell never washes off. The work never ends. The trap never opens. And now you understand completely.